Hi everyone, it's Cage Taylor from the Nocturnal. So Hulu just released a new psychological thriller just in time for all the Halloween fun that is October. It's called Books of Blood. So there's a ton of stars in this movie, and it basically combines three different tales where characters find themselves in, some scary situations, and all the stories end up intertwined in the end. And it's based on the book series by Clive Barker. So I have him here today. He's going to tell us more about it, as well as the director, Brannon Braga. You first become connected to each other.
Oh, when did that
Reached out
happen,
through.
Brandon? Why?
Well,
How did?
we were first introduced over the phone like 8 years ago, maybe even longer, but we didn't start getting together in person until like 3 years ago. And it's through a mutual friend.
Yeah,
And
that's right. That's right. I didn't realize it was, but it is. It probably is 8 years ago. Good God, yeah. Time passes when you're having fun. um, but it was always once we started to sit together and decided to do this. Uh, our minds are alike in lots of regards, and it was just great to be able to tell stories to each other.
Mhm. And then, so where did your imagination come from? Because you both have dealt like with supernatural and with thrillers and different.
Yeah, it's I've done a bunch of different kinds of stories, but in the end, it may seem weird to say this, but I think Brandon will support me in this. You don't choose the story; the story chooses you. You become a sort of function of a narrative. Um, I'm writing a book called Deep Hill right now, a novel called Deep Hill. When I get started on that story, hours can pass, literally hours can pass, and me not even be aware that I'm writing. Does that happen to you, Brandon?
on the good days,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Then there are bad days when you can't write a single word. Absolutely. But on the good days, uh, it's an altered experience. It's it's stepping out of yourself into a place which is pure imagination.
it's the more and more uh, scientific research is supporting the subconscious mind as a very powerful part of our brains. And it's hard to say how ideas, how do you come up with ideas? Clive's right. They usually just pop into your head because your brain's working even when you don't think it is. So,
Yeah,
it's
particularly if it's the way that you put bread on your table. And I know that might sound like a joke, but it isn't. When I started writing the books of blood, I hadn't ever had a job. I was certainly not a job that earned me money. Uh, I was uh, I was 29. I was not going to be a wage slave. Didn't want to do that, and I was eating, cold beans out of a can kind of deal. And I had gathered up just for my own entertainment a few stories, three or four stories, and I looked at them and I thought, well, maybe I could put some more together. And once I started to put more together, I sort of couldn't stop. There was this outpouring of tales, and I had a grandmother, a wonderful Irish grandmother, who told me the most morbid stories you have ever heard. She was I was 6, 7, 8, maybe. And I would go up to her house and she would sit there and she would know stuff about murders, about, uh, I lived in Liverpool, in a pretty bad part of Liverpool. At that time, there were a lot of violent things going on. So she knew everything. And I just lapped it up. I mean, it was perfect. I mean, my grandmother told me some of the stuff that goes on in Candyman, for instance. Uh, she actually told me stuff which, when I look back on it, is sort of shocking that she actually shared that with a child. But thank God she did, because she turned out a guy who felt at ease with scares. Uh, uh, in fact, the more intense the scare can be, the better. And I think Brandon and I share that desire for intensity, but not the just boo intensity, the intensity that comes from being inside a character and really understanding their increasing madness or lack of lack of faith in reality, which more and more is the human experience if we live in America, right?
And then,
It's
so
all
what is,
it's all fake news anyway.
and then what is your experience, both of you, been with science? Because there's a lot of science in this film in terms of, Anna's character as well as Frida's character.
Yeah,
Well, that
go. Yeah, you
no,
go.
I was just going to say it's part of the character of Mary that she is a critical thinker uh, who lets her emotions and desire to believe her son is still alive somewhere get the best of her by I'm about to give plot twists away, which I probably shouldn't do. But the story exists. But it's about science plays a narrative role. And in the case of the Jenna story, yeah, one of the characters is a nurse.
But
Um,
I think with respect, it's more than that. Science is about rules, isn't it? Science is about the fact that this is the way reality works. Yeah, science at its best helps us define what reality is. What horror tends to do is say, whatever you thought about reality, you're wrong. Uh,
thank you.
Mary, go on. No, go on. Go on.
Thank you. That was beautifully put.
It strikes me that Mary is somebody who is trying to put reality in a box and trying to disprove the wilder theories of reality, only to find out they're even wilder than she thought they were, which I think is true. I think what is that line from Hamlet? There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in our philosophy, and I believe that to be the case. I think we get a tiny scraping of reality through our senses. We have to we have to rely upon our imaginations to feel what is strange about the world and what is new about the world. We can't just simply trust five senses.
So, how much of the film is based on the books?
Brannon.
Well, the story we just referenced, the Mary Simon story, is the first story from the first volume of the Books of Blood, and that's the origin story of the Book of Blood, which was kind of a mandatory story to do in the first of what we hope are several volumes or several movies.
Mhm.
And the other two stories really came out of our meetings together and other stories that Clive had been thinking about that felt like good ones to do, that would all fit together. The concept that I'd never heard before of a haunted neighborhood where some kind of supernatural Chernobyl event occurred. In this case, it takes place in Mary's house from the other story. And then the concept of kind of this Airbnb from hell, which was based on a real story that Clive had, kind of a famous one out of England, um, was just too juicy to pass up. So these are all Barker tales, but two of them are more recent.
Mhm. So, how do you incorporate new viewers in with the fans of the book?
I don't think. I think that the fans of the book are not going to be disappointed at all because they're going to get two new stories for one thing. So that's sort of fun. And I think that the rereading of the original Books of Blood story that we get in the movie is so fresh and so beautifully performed that I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed. I think there's a lot of readers out there who've perhaps forgotten the joys of picking up a collection of short stories. Uh, these books have been out, I don't know, 35 years or something like that, and we've always had uh, readers around the world. It would be a pity, I think, if we lost uh, our taste for short stories because Horror stories, I think, are best when they're short and have a real energy to them, a real aggression to them.
Mhm. And then, so what is the perfect setting to watch this movie in? Like, should you watch it by yourself? Watch it with people? Um, you know, lights on, lights off. October's coming up, so
I would say definitely inside a coffin with a small television. I jest, I jest. You're gonna have a big one, but the idea of watching horror on your own always seems to me to be the right way. You don't want anybody having an opinion. You don't want anybody making a noise. The only one I'll sit with my parrot who's with me right now, and I'll sit with my puppy on my lap watching horror. But
I mean, the times I've been most scared have been alone with a horror movie that I had to turn off and say, I'm going to watch this during the daytime. And that's happened. It happened.
could you name one for us?
Oh, yeah. First time it ever happened as an adult
Yeah.
was Rosemary's Baby, which I had not seen till I was in my early 20s. And the, the dream sequence happened where
Yes.
Rose, this is not a dream, this is really happening. And
Yes.
this is too scary, I'm turning it off. And the second time, I was in my late 30s, early 40s, when I obtained a VHS copy of the original Japanese The Ring,
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was home alone at night, and when that lady starts crawling out of the TV, I'm like, nope, I'm going to watch this tomorrow.
And did you?
Yes, but
Yeah.
it was too scary. I don't know how else to put it. I'm
I
like,
I I think that can be very often true of pictures that you don't expect to be scary. There's a movie called Les Yeux Sans Visage, Eyes Without a Face, a French movie by Georges Franju. It is a black and white picture. It's doesn't tell you it's going to be as strange and as distressing as it is. But if you have if you haven't hidden behind a piece of furniture at least once in the movie, then you have no soul. It's a terrifying picture. Are you familiar with Les Yeux Sans Visage, Brannon?
oh yes, of course.
Yeah, yeah. And the scene with their face in the operating room, black and white picture. I had to leave the cinema. Never mind leaving you. Never mind turning off your television. I had to leave the cinema after that one. Oh boy.
one last question: what made the series of stories perfect to make into a film?
I can say nothing on that. Has to be young Brannon on that one.
Anybody who is familiar with the books of blood knows that they're very. A lot of movies have been made from these stories, by the way, already. Some can be filmed. Some it's hard to know how they would be filmed because they're just so completely unique and uncanny. They almost have to exist as a written story. But I will say what we hope in this film is that the fans of people already fans of Clive's and of the Books of Blood will enjoy this movie. And we're also hoping it introduces a new generation to these books because if there's anyone reading this interview or watching who has not read the Books of Blood, you're in for the ride of your life. Read,
Thank you.
sit down and enjoy because these stories are amazing.
But make sure there's somebody else in the house and they don't have an axe. Make sure they don't have an axe. Thank you for saying that, Brennan. That's very kind of you.